Psychology in Seattle.
Hello and welcome to Psychology in Seattle. I'm your host, Kirk Honda, licensed therapist. Please visit psychologyinseattle.com, go to our Support Us page and learn how you can support us, because without your support, we will wither and die and stop making podcasts. So go to the Support Us page on our website and support us. Also, on our website, I've been adding links and other fun stuff, so check that out periodically. You can email us at contact@psychologyinseattle.com. That's contact@psychologyinseattle.com. Today's music is provided by Bread Knife Incident, whose music is available on iTunes. And you can support us by telling friends about us, particularly if they're in the field, right? Today, we have a special guest back on the podcast, Dr. Ann Blake. She's a friend of mine, and she's also a coworker. We're both professors at Antioch University. Welcome to the podcast, Ann.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be back.
Originally, we were going to have you interpret Umberto and Mandy's Myers-Briggs profiles, but
Yes.
Umberto contracted the norovirus, so he's at home vomiting and other things of that ilk.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So it's just me and Ann today. I thought it'd be good to have Ann on the show to explain the Myers-Briggs on this episode, and then have you back on the show to interpret Umberto and Mandy's profile. Sound good?
Super.
Okay. So explain the Myers-Briggs test.
Okay. So the first thing to do is to do a correction from our last podcast, and that is that Carl Jung actually called himself C.G. Jung, always. So I had referred to him by his name Carl, and he didn't go by that, so we will refer to him as C.G.
So in the previous episode, you talked about Jungian analytical psychology, and we played it for our colleagues. We sent the link out to our colleagues, and one of our colleagues, our boss's boss, shall we say, said a C.G. Jung fan told you that, and you already knew this, right, I assume?
I certainly knew this, and I didn't know how specifically important it was.
Yeah.
And he approached me with all due respect, offered his hands to me in the hallway, and said, could I give you just this, with a great big grin on his face, this slightest bit of feedback, which was absolutely fabulously perfect.
So C.G. Jung himself preferred other people to refer to him as C.G. Jung, not Carl.
Yes.
Because why is that? Why?
I don't know.
I think I'm going to start doing that. You have to now call me K. Is that all right? KJ.
Absolutely, KJ. Fine. I may be.
Don't call me Kirk. I'm now KJ Honda.
And I am, when I was a tiny child, my dad called me AB.
AB.
So some of my family calls me AB.
AB Blake?
AB Blake, yeah.
That's a ring to it.
C.G. Jung actually wasn't a fan of the Myers-Briggs.
The original developers of the Myers-Briggs personality inventory, or the type indicator, were Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers.
That's right.
They developed it during World War II. And again, it says here in Wikipedia, so correct me if I'm wrong, believing that a knowledge of personality preferences would help women who were entering the industrial workforce for the first time to identify the sort of wartime jobs that would be most comfortable and effective, quote unquote.
Well, that's even better than the booklet says, because it does say, prompted by the waste of human potential in World War II, they began developing this indicator to give a wide range of individuals access. But I'm even more pleased that it's about women.
Yeah. The initial questionnaire grew into the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which was first published in 1962.
62. Oh, that's easy to remember.
And so you're saying that it's in its 6th edition right now. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
It is based on Jung's typology, which has to do with functions, namely thinking and feeling and sensing and intuiting, as well as introversion, extraversion, and as well as judging and perceiving.
Right.
And so they take all those indicators into account and come up with a profile.
Right. So C.G. Jung had a theory about different personality types and these 4 spectra. And then these 2 women came along and developed a psychometric to measure that in people.
Exactly.
Based on Jung's theory.
The indicator is incredibly popular, used a lot for career counseling and people in business use it?
I must have taken it 10 times in my life when I think about other personality tests that I've taken. This is, by far the most prevalent. So you said that Jung didn't like this test.
That's what I've been told.
Okay.
I don't know specifics about that. A hunch is that it might be too simplistic. The other thing is that the authors say that this is not an absolute numerical sequence that is you. It's just an indicator of this moment, and it's a slice of information that might be useful. Although we seem to be born with preferences along these areas, we slide a lot. So I've taken it several times. I do show some differences.
Yeah, I could see how, say, for instance, you're young and you're shy, you might be more introverted on the scale. And as you get older and you might get more self-esteem or more enjoyment from extroverted activities, you might start answering questions indicating more extroversion.
Yes.
Okay. Not to overvalue extroversion over introversion, of course.
Please no.
Just as an example, though.
In talking about typology, Jung described the unusefulness of being one-sided. And so he thought that people should have, or would be ideal, to have all of the ends of the continuum. And that at midlife, which was then 35 and is now much older, we actually come closer to the middle and not so far out on the extremes. And maybe even shift our typology some. Because we're becoming whole human beings as we age, and we can take that other half. I think of the yin-yang, and so the other half, we change from the light to the dark. And it's like handedness. My second father was ambidextrous, so he could use either hand to pitch baseball. And that's very useful. So people who are very, very left-handed or right-handed are actually limited by not being able to use the left hand if something is being thrown from the left side.
So flexibility is valued in this model.
Yes.
Okay.
So that I use the function that the task calls for, rather than I'm stuck in a rut and I'm inflexible and this is what I do.
So you have choice given what you want to do rather than you're forced into a particular way of acting based on rigidity in your personality. Okay.
Yes. And as we talk about mental health, that's what we tend to value, is flexibility.
Adaptability.
Well, I would love first to read a poem.
Great.
And also a little bit of a reading from a book by Kersey and Bates called Please Understand Me. But the first is a poem by William Stafford. This is called A Ritual to Read to Each Other, and it's from his book, The Darkness Around Us is Deep. A ritual to read to each other. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there's many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood, storming out to play through the broken dike. As elephants parade, holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs but not recognize the fact. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider, lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. So for me, that speaks to knowing self, and therefore being able to know other, and then the darkness recedes somewhat. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to have a contemplative quality to it. That's what I felt, a sense of, oh yeah, who am I? What's going on with me right now?
Yeah.
And what is my authentic self?
Yes, exactly. Okay. And then this is different drums and different drummers. Again, from Kersey and Bates, Please Understand Me. If I did not want what you want, please try not to tell me that my want is wrong. Or if I believe other than you, at least pause before you correct my view. Or if my emotion is less than yours or more, given the same circumstances, try not to ask me to feel more strongly or weakly. Or yet if I act or fail to act in the manner of your design for action, let me be. I do not, for the moment at least, ask you to understand me. That will come only when you are willing to give up changing me into a copy of you. I may be your spouse, your parent, your offspring, your friend, or your colleague. If you will allow me any of my own wants or emotions, or beliefs, or actions, then you open yourself so that someday these ways of mine might not seem so wrong and might finally appear to you as right for me. To put up with me is the first step to understanding me. Not that you embrace my ways as right for you, but that you are no longer irritated or disappointed with me for my seeming waywardness. And in understanding me, you might come to prize my differences from you, and far from seeking to change me, preserve and even nurture those differences. So again, that is what the Myers-Briggs seeks to do, is to let me know who I am, to also give me information about how other people are different from me and that those differences are valuable. So when we are scared, when we are feeling less than powerful, we tend to want to be attuned to and mirrored. And that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do in those times when we are frightened. The rest of the time, it's useful to say, I learn the most from people who are the most different from me. And that's about diversity and cultural competence and living in a pluralistic society. And that is what gets us into so much trouble in the world. So differences, I sometimes bristle because I'm trying to make a point and other people are either saying no or it's different than this, and I sometimes bristle and I have to say, okay, look, we're just trying to communicate with each other. It's not about me being validated by someone being the same as me. But when that happens, it sometimes feels pretty good.
Yeah. The image that I had as you were reading that was of a couple trying to understand each other specifically, but as you broaden it to just every relationship, it makes sense.
Yes.
But the image I had was of a couple where both people are different slightly, or, in some major ways, and, miss each other sometimes in terms of trying to understand each other, misunderstand each other.
Yes.
And by valuing the differences and by empathizing with the other person, by understanding the other person, a lot of our problems can be solved.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at everyone to be exactly like us, or to think just like us, or to process just like us, or to have the exact same opinions as us.
Yeah.
In that is suffering, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
These kind of formulations give us language for that, so that I can say I'm an ISFJ, and people who know about this test will know what that means. It's a shorthand way, like many of the things we talk about. It's a jargon way. And I can also explain that with phrases and descriptions, and say, this is how I process, and I want to hear how you process. We're processing differently.
Right. A friend of mine would sometimes say that she is, I can't remember the string of letters, but she would say, well, I'm a da-da-da-da-da, which means I'm a terrible planner. So don't expect me to plan anything because I'm too random and I'm too in the moment. And so don't expect me to plan anything because actually planning makes my head hurt,
Yes.
So she understands that about herself through experience. And and announces it so that people don't get disappointed when she doesn't do what they hope her to do.
That is correct, yeah. So it is useful to understand ourselves and to be able to describe ourselves to others. As I said in the first time we were together, I don't use client examples, I use my family, so I apologize in advance to my family. My sister is definitely sensing, and I'm going to read you the definition of sensing. So sensing is people who prefer to take in information through the five senses and focus on the here and now. That is opposite from intuition, which is what I am. And intuitive people prefer to take in information from patterns of the big picture and focus on the future possibilities. So sensing people look at facts, and intuitive people look at hunches. So we both know things, but we know it differently.
Yeah.
And those two of the 4 pairs are the two that people have the most difficulty with. So people who are different on those 2 things about taking in information is the most conflictual and misunderstood between people. And I might have said this during the first broadcast, because my sister is a detail person and I'm an overview, she needs to tell the story, and she needs to tell the whole story. So she backs up and adds more details. Once I knew that that was necessary for her, rather than just different and a little overwhelming for me, I can let her do that. And she will ask me detailed questions, and I will say, I don't know, because that's not what I pay attention to, but here's what I pay attention to, and I can add this. And so when people are different like that, they bring different talents to the table, and that's useful.
So is that a common trait of a sensing person to talk a lot about details and bore the crap out of the intuitive people?
That's not what's so common if we know what's going on. It's overwhelming for me.
But is it boring? Because I could see it being boring and overwhelming.
Yes, it can be. It can be boring and overwhelming.
Yeah.
And on the converse side, for people who are sensing and dealing with a person like me, I'm not going to be able to give details. I don't think of asking the questions. If I do ask the questions, I'm going to lose the content because I focus on process rather than content. So I'm good at getting the gestalt of something. I'm not so good at doing the details.
So just as an example, if you were consulting on a case and someone was asking you questions about a case, might you give impressions rather than quotes from the client?
That's exactly the word, impressions.
I see.
So when I give presentations, I've got stuff in front of me, and once I look at the headlines, I just can go. But I'm not going to, like when we were talking about who are the authors of this and when was it published, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can find information,
right,
but I don't know it on my top of my head.
Whereas your sister, those details would have stuck in her brain, or she would have made sure to have those present right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Those aren't things that are at the front of your mind or that you necessarily retain or pay attention
to.
No. Okay.
No.
So those 2 types of people have a lot of conflict in your experience, or according to research, or just your experience?
Absolutely, according to research.
It seems like a major problem at a workplace too, right? Which this is used a lot for.
Yes.
How people get along at work.
Yes.
You know, a manager that's very detail oriented, a sensor person.
Yes.
Has a underling, so to speak, that is an intuitor person who's a big picture sort of person.
Yes.
I could see how they would be very at odds.
Yeah, absolutely. We sometimes go in and consult with companies and say, here are some descriptors. So I have a whole packet of things that I give to people and say, I want you to read about yourself, and I want you to read about the opposite. So let me just say the other 3 pairs.
Yeah.
So extraversion and introversion are C.G. Jung's words, his concepts. So extroverts are people who tend to focus their attention on the outer world of people and things. They charge their batteries by being with people and doing things. Introverts prefer to focus their attention on the inner world of ideas and impressions. And introverts charge their battery by being alone.
Right. A common misunderstanding that I kind of made earlier was that shy people are introverts, which isn't necessarily true.
That is correct.
Yeah, I've heard this detail to describe extrovert versus introvert as how one charges one's battery.
Exactly.
And I've asked people, it's like, well, so at the end of the day, when you're stressed out or you're kind of tired from work, would you rather talk with someone that you care about, or would you rather just be alone to recharge? Which recharges your battery? And a lot of people will say, oh, I need to be alone, or oh my God, like I need to talk to someone. And again, you see a lot of conflicts in this in couples, you know?
Well, and because we are attracted to our opposite for good reasons, and so in couples and in workplaces and every other relationship, again, we're attracted to the opposite so that we can learn from that. And our initial attraction to that in the other person, we then recede back into our own comfort zone and say, well, I don't like that you do it that way, rather than I want to learn from you about that.
Right. In my psychodynamic framework, I see it as a repressed interject or an internal representation that's being recreated through the repetition compulsion, as Freud would have put it. In our own parents, there are sometimes these dichotomies that get replayed. So often in our therapy, we will see clients that have these very different,
absolutely,
extrovert, introvert, for instance. And through this model, one can understand the other and not disparage them, think of them as, say one person is extroverted, they come home, they really want to talk, and the other person's like, back off, stop yammering at me. That could feel very insensitive. It could be very hurtful to the person. But if they understand that, they're an introvert, they need to recharge by being alone, and then they can come to me once their battery's recharged. I can wait for them, or maybe I need to find an extra friend that I talk with or something like that.
And the other thing about introverts, at least in my experience of myself, is I am so much better one-to-one. I like groups when I know them. So I'm involved in like 4 or 5 groups at the moment for my personal well-being and support. But parties are just death to me. I really dislike them. I go to them because I feel responsible to the people who are giving them, but I don't enjoy it.
Right. So you would walk away from a party going, "Oh, I need to be alone. I need to recharge my battery."
Yeah. I get in my car and relax.
Yeah. Whereas another person, they go to a party and they're energized. They walk away going, "Wow, that was energizing to me.
I wish I didn't have to leave."
Yeah.
So the thinking and feeling is how we make decisions. And so thinking people, pretty obvious, make decisions based on logic and objective analysis of cause and effect. So it's an analytic process. And feeling people make decisions based on values and subjective evaluation of person-centered concerns. So it's about appreciation as opposed to analysis.
I run into this a lot in my world when people talk about things like science versus religion or alternative medicine versus what scientists might call evidence-based medicine or this sort of thing. Yep. Someone says, when I take this supplement, it works for me. And then the other person says, well, the science says that it's not likely to work for you. And these people are at complete odds with each other, and they very infrequently understand. In fact, in my experience, they never understand each other.
Yes, absolutely. Rather than seeing it's right or wrong, the way we do things, if we can have a dialogue about it and say, your perspective can really add to my perspective,
right,
rather than I can only read things and hear things that agree with my perspective. I mean, we get into arguments all the time on the basis of, I need to be heard, I need to be right.
So just to get back to this last spectrum, so there's a thinking versus feeling. That seems to be the most intuitive in terms of understanding. It's like, there's logic versus what something feels like.
And feels like in terms of valuing. So it's not about emotion, it's about value, which again is almost like a belief. What I value is pretty hard to debate with me, rather than what I analyze to be true. Last time when we were talking, I gave the example of buying a car. And a friend of mine said, please don't just buy the first car you see. And so we read the consumer report, and I went to all the places that I wanted to go, and we said Honda and Toyota. And so I drove things, and then I came to my Honda dealer and thinking, well, I'll get a Civic. And then I saw the red Del Sol. And I just knew that was my car.
So a thinking person, it sounds funny to say that you're an unthinking person, but on this spectrum, a thinking person would have said, oh, I kind of have this intuition that I want to buy this Del Sol, but it's not logical.
It doesn't make sense.
Because it doesn't. Yeah.
It's a 2-seater. It's a small car. A big truck will run over me.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So might thinkers take longer to make decisions than
they can get into analysis paralysis, yes. Yeah. Intuitive people look a little more spontaneous, but actually it comes from a deep valuing and a recognition.
Yeah, something that's intangible, maybe
sometimes. Yes, intangible to other people.
But it feels right.
Yes.
I could also see intuitive people taking a long time to make a decision if nothing feels right.
Yes.
I can think of intuitive people that I think are on the intuitive side of the spectrum who can't pick a career.
Yes.
Because careers are so complicated and
Yeah.
nothing really jumps out at them.
That's right. And some of us don't have, rather than having a narrow range of what interests us, we have a wide range, and that makes it really hard.
Right.
So I don't know if I gave this example the last time, but I was looking for an outfit for a family event, and a friend decided to come help me. And she would bring this thing forward and this thing forward, and I would say no, and I would say no, and she was getting frustrated and taking it just a little bit personally, like she was disappointed that she wasn't able to help me and that I was being negative. And she finally said to me, "Look, what do you want?" And we sat down and I said, "I can't tell you what I want. I cannot describe what I want. I will recognize it when I see it, but until I see it, I can't describe it. When I see it, I'll go, oh, that's what I want, and I can describe it. But I won't know till I recognize it. Till I see it in front of me, then I know."
So that statement comes from a place of self-awareness that other people might not have.
Yes.
And therefore get insulted and get into a fight and say, "Stop pressuring me."
Right.
whereas
Or can't you make up your mind?
You were able to say, "This is how I work."
Right.
It's interesting to be able to tell other people how we process things, how we make decisions, how we think.
Yeah.
That is an important piece of self-awareness that is very useful just as a conflict is about to begin, right?
Right.
Yeah.
One of the issues is that we have to get out of content, which is you said, she said, we said, into process. So process is describing what is going on, and we don't have a whole lot of social permission to do that. So that's what we do a lot in therapy with our clients. But in terms of social engagement, we don't have a lot of permission to do that. So when someone says to that person, "Your tone bothers me," that's flame on the fire.
Yeah. Especially if they're not in the field that we are in.
Yeah.
They think we're wielding our psychology weapon against them. "Stop analyzing me.
I know.
Don't play your tricks on me."
So I want to do one more, how we deal with the outer world, and that is by judging or perceiving. So judging is people who prefer to have a planned and organized approach to life and prefer to have things settled. So I have a calendar, and that's how I live my life, as opposed to people who are perceiving, who tend to like a spontaneous and flexible approach and to keep their options open. So judging people are bring it to conclusion, and perceiving people are about understanding possibilities and being open to them. So this friend of yours said, "I don't plan very well, so just know that about me."
Yeah. Right. So she's the perceiving side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Might we just call them flaky?
Again, a trap that I'm not going to fall into.
I guess I'm a judger because I judge the flaky people. Yeah, I definitely follow a schedule, and I'm a very punctual person.
We had an appointment tonight at 7:30.
Yeah.
I left school at 7:21 thinking it would take me a while.
Yeah.
When I got here early, I walked around the block, so I'd come in at the right moment.
It's a good skill to have as a therapist and as a professor because we're so regulated by our appointments.
Yes.
And people really depend on us being early.
Yes.
And being well scheduled, whereas you could see I have friends of mine and colleagues that are always late.
Yeah.
Like I tell them a half hour early just because I know they're going to be late.
My mother.
Yeah.
Well, and from their perspective, it would be about being spontaneous and about being flexible and not rigid.
Right.
And I know that it was tongue-in-cheek somewhat when you said, could we call them flaky? But it is that position where, from my perspective, it works for me and it should work for other people.
Yeah.
And we are different. And in fact, these eight things turn out to be 16 different blocks of descriptions.
Right.
So there are at least 16 different ways that we can be. Yeah. And then when we do the test, we're either slight score, moderate score, clear score, or very, very clear score. So that also puts shadings on all of these things. So for instance, on my introversion, extroversion, I am very cuspy.
Meaning you're right in the middle?
Yeah. Okay. I'm like 1 point to either side.
Okay.
And so I can be extroverted. So I can teach, I can have this conversation. Comfortable enough, I can be the life of the party. Given my real desire at the end of the day, I'm in my car alone and breathing. And then I'm home and quiet. And that's how I recharge. The wonderful thing that I think about the Myers-Briggs is that it is in some ways acultural. Now, even Jung, who came up with these ideas, has some pejorative things to say about introverts. And the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the new version that's coming out, wanted to make introversion a disorder.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Why?
Well, because people see us as too pulled in and not sociable enough.
What was the wording in the proposed DSM? It would have to be really problematic introversion. I mean, it would have to be like, introverts would have to be very upset with themselves, not from a cultural oppression standpoint, but from an actual...
These things are on a continuum.
Yeah.
And so the further one gets out on a continuum about anything, so moderation is a useful thing. So as we get out into any of the ends of the continua on these 8 topics, that can be problematic.
Yeah. But if someone wants to not socialize very much, or they like to hang out by themselves a lot, I can't see why that's pathology.
Well, I know.
So how often do you administer this, and where?
So when I first started into practice, when I was working with couples, I gave them this test, and there was even a couples version of it, which is no longer published. Because I'm not much of a detailed person, I stopped doing that. But as you and I talk about it, I'm thinking of some couples, and I think it would be useful for them. So I think I'm going to do that. Occasionally, I talk to people about career, and I like to do this because it has some connection with some career. So at least we could narrow that down. I teach Advanced Theories Jungian once a year. I always administer it to the students. And in our career counseling class at Antioch, the instructor always uses this instrument for the students.
Okay.
So at Antioch, we do it probably 4 times a year, the students.
I'm curious, is there a typical Antiochian profile student?
Well, that's a factual question. So at Antioch University, Seattle, we have a couple and family program, and we have a clinical mental health program. And clinical mental health people deal mostly with individuals and groups. We also can do families and couples. The clinical the couple and family students and professors deal mostly with couples and families. They certainly can see individuals. It seems to me that because of the systemic theoretical perspective of the couple and family program, it tends to be more extroverted people because they're a little more directive in how they work. The clinical mental health people are more looking intrapsychically, and rather than interpsychically, intrapersonal rather than interpersonal. And so I think the CFT, the couple and family people, tend to be more extroverted, and the clinical mental health people tend to be more introverted. And I remember a specific student who went into a couple and family, and this person was really quite introverted, and pretty quickly came back and said, actually, it's just too much thinking for me. So I think the strategic, systemic part is a thinking function, and the valuing, perceptive part is a more feeling function. So I bet we would fall out certainly across the curve, but kind of bunched up.
I'm on the couple and family therapy side of the aisle, shall we say, and yeah, I would say it's definitely possible. I could also see it not bearing out. For instance, me. If you just heard me speak about my theory of change, people would think that I'm wildly Freudian to some extent and would say, oh, he's definitely not family therapy because family therapists traditionally reject psychodynamic thought outright. Not all the time, of course. And also, I just have a personal value about trying to bridge gaps. And so I like to see all of us in the psychology school to be more similar than different. Yeah. And as an added data point, Paul David, his dissertation was on studying the differences between MHC students and CFT students.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Unfortunately for him, because he was trying to prove that there was a difference, there was no noticeable difference between the students regarding their assessment of a session with a family. He showed a family session to a bunch of students, CFT and MHC, and asked them to analyze the family to provide a written narrative of their analysis of the family. And then those assessments were coded for either systemic language or individual therapy language. Yeah. And there was no difference between the two groups, which is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But is in line with my hope. And that is that, we're all very similar in my mind, and there's a lot of mixing.
Well, especially because we at Antioch, we teach people, the beginning classes are a mix for everybody of individually oriented classes and systemic classes.
If people want to take this test, what should they do?
That's an incredibly good question. So on the internet are versions of this. Whether they are the Myers-Briggs, I don't know. But when I did a workshop for the Antioch University Seattle staff members, some of them took it on the web. When they brought the results to me, it wasn't as much information as is on the regular Myers-Briggs. So it was a little bit less information and not as specific. But that is available on the internet.
Do you think they're accurate when the profile that they spit back at the person, do you think they're as accurate as the test you have?
I think it's broad brushstroke rather than fine brushstroke.
Okay.
The other way to do it is you have to go to a counselor, because counselors have to buy the scoring and buy the booklets and the test.
The official
instruments.
MBTI test and the scoring software. Is it a software?
No, it's a piece of paper that smells like celery.
Smells like...
Maybe it is made out of celery.
Yeah.
So some strong points for sensing types and intuitive types, which are, again, opposite poles. The sensing types contribute to the public welfare by their support of every form of enjoyment and recreation and every variety of comfort, luxury, and beauty. So these folks participate in the culture with great enthusiasm. And intuitive types contribute to the public welfare by their inventiveness, initiative, enterprise, and powers of inspired leadership in every direction of human interest. So those are two very different aspects of personality.
Those descriptions are interesting, but I'm having a hard time putting those into a person. I mean, it sounds like the sensing people contribute to society by...
Well, and participating and paying attention.
Paying attention.
So as an intuitive, I am so fortunate to have friends who pay attention to things and invite me. I hardly ever invite people to things because I'm just not paying attention. And so they read the paper, they go online, they notice things that are coming, and they call and say, "Do you want to do this?" I invariably say, "Yes, thank you so much." I just don't pay attention. And I love the arts. And as an intuitive, I contribute by inventing things, by imagining things, by looking at possibilities, and not so attuned to the factual sensing, the five senses.
Okay.
And I think this is connected with intuitive. It might also just be connected to my wiring. I don't do time. The only way I know time has shifted is if the sun comes up or the sun goes down. That's the only way I know time.
How does that manifest?
So, for instance, I work on a 50-minute hour. I have clocks all over that I can see without turning my head or looking down at my watch. Sometimes when clients start a new topic, the inner clock that I have, which is really inaccurate, starts over. So I would go on forever with the client. I don't have a sense of 50 minutes, even though I've been doing this for 30 years.
So you get lost in the moment a lot.
Yes. In class, people have to tell me it's time to take a break.
I see.
Yeah.
So the benefit to that is that you're fully in the moment.
I am so fully in the moment. So like with you, I have no idea what time it is. I have no idea how long we've been at this. Eventually, I will get tired or hungry. So that's another way I know time passes.
Well, it's been about 3 minutes into the interview, so we have a ways to go.
Thank goodness.
Actually, we've been sitting here for 4.5 hours, and I have to go to the bathroom desperately. And I was just waiting for you to bring this up. No, just okay. Okay, any other ones?
In terms of thinking and feeling, the contribution and strength of a thinking type is they contribute by intellectual criticism of habits, customs, and beliefs, by the exposure of wrongs, solution of problems, and the support of science and research for enlarging human knowledge. The feeling types contribute by their loyal support of good works and those movements, and they are generally regarded as good by the community which they feel correctly about so they can serve effectively. So feeling people are going to be involved in things that they value, and they will be wholeheartedly involved in those things.
Wow.
And thinking types are going to be more concerned with specific solution of problems and outcomes.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of what that might look like?
So a research scientist,
Yeah.
as contrasted with a counselor. So counselors are going to be, certainly counselors will be interested in social justice, but as a more global concept rather than maybe specific action. We will value that highly, maybe not take as much action. Thinking people are going to want results. And so they will maybe be more active. They will certainly be more active in conceptual things.
The feeling people might be more suited for counseling, and the thinking people might be more suited for research.
Yeah.
But not always, of course.
Right. And
Yeah.
there's a crossover.
Right.
Certainly. So in judging and perceiving, judging people take great pleasure in getting something finished out of the way and off their minds. Perceptive people take great pleasure in starting something new until the newness wears off.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay.
So in jobs, I think it's useful to have all the typology available because all those talents are useful. And it can get frustrating when the deadline arrives because judging people are about deadline, perceptive people are not about deadline. It's like, well, it's just going to take me another 2 hours and the product will be better. And the judging people are, it's time, it's due, it's a drop-dead deadline. And that can be tension between the two. Judging people aim to be right, perceptive people aim to miss nothing.
Miss nothing.
Yes.
Miss nothing.
So possibilities, so spontaneity, so flexibility. But what if we spend another hour, we could get this much different? We might turn in a different direction, something else might unfold.
Whereas the judging people
Want to get it done.
It's like, let's get it done. Don't digress.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see how both sides are beneficial to a group of people or within a person.
And it can be frustrating for each other.
Yeah. And in a relationship, a romantic relationship,
Exactly.
I could see that being a problem
Absolutely.
too. Yeah.
And challenging and enriching and invigorating.
Yeah.
Because if we are the same, it's comforting and nice for a moment. It's stultifying
Yeah.
in the long run.
Right. So you don't use this with clients anymore.
I tend not to, and I talk about it a lot. And I especially talk about introversion with clients who I perceive as introverted because I think we're kind of beleaguered in society and we're not valued. I remember being at a party years ago, enjoying the heck out of myself. I might have said this the time before. And at the end of the party, a person turned to me and said, well, what did you get out of this? What did I get out of this? I had a great time. I just didn't talk very much.
Oh.
I was laughing, I was animated, I was appreciating.
But they thought you weren't very animated.
They didn't know what I got out of it because I wasn't having conversation.
You weren't talking, you were listening.
Yeah. Which is really diminishing for an introvert who is having a great time.
Yeah.
So there's that, again, that valuation.
Yeah.
You didn't do it like I did it, therefore it's wrong.
You're so quiet.
Exactly.
What's wrong with you?
Exactly.
Are you angry? Are you
depressed?
uncomfortable?
Now I am, but I wasn't a minute
Yeah,
ago.
thanks. Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about a little bit last time is about reclaiming the shadow
Yeah.
and reclaiming projections. So we project all the time on people who are different from us, both in terms of typology and any other differences we can imagine. And so those differences are also in us. And so to reclaim projections, I have people do the following. So think of somebody different from you in a typology, for instance. So I'm an introvert, so think of an extrovert. I'm an intuitive, so think of a sensing. I'm a judging, so think of a perceiving. I'm a feeling, so think of a thinker. Any one of those will do. And probably the one for whom I have the most annoyance. And then figure out what the typology is that annoys me. It's probably the opposite of mine. And then describe that with a statement or some descriptors, some adjectives, and then say, I too think, feel, behave in that way in the following ways, and do a description of that. So that then I see those other characteristics in me. I see my extroversion, I see my thinking, I see my sensing, I see my perceiving.
Because if we don't see that and accept that in ourselves, then we tend to project it and dislike it in other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See it as pejorative.
Yeah,
in
and
others.
react to it.
Yes.
I'm a
Yes.
planner. I hate flaky people. Those flaky people instead say, I accept that I too like to be spontaneous.
That I could have some flexibility in my life.
That I like flexibility. That I like to be in the moment.
Because when I sign it out to you, I don't grow in that way.
So someone could take the test, look at their profile, and then look at the opposite profile.
Yes.
And
Yes.
see how they might be disparaging that in other people and denying it in themselves. And then try to reclaim their shadow, which is this other side of themselves. Are you willing to talk about yours and your shadow?
Sure.
So what are you?
So I am an introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. So an INFJ.
INFJ.
Right. And so the report form tells us that INFJs seek meaning and connection in ideas, relationships, and material possessions. We want to understand what motivates people and are insightful about others. We are conscientious and committed to firm values. We develop a clear vision about how best to serve the common good. We are organized and decisive in implementing a vision. And do you want to hear the opposite of that?
Yeah.
So ESTP.
So that is your shadow, the side of you that doesn't express itself through the test when you're answering the question.
Right. And I am very likely to have that person as a romantic partner.
Interesting.
And actually as friends. Most of my friends are extroverted.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a better understanding, but I also feel like I have an understanding of how broad this test is and how complicated it is.
Yes.
And how it requires a fair amount of contemplation and counseling with an expert who knows how to interpret this stuff. Because I've looked at my test results before and I've had, people explain it to me, but I get the feeling like it takes an expert like you to really help someone understand really what it's saying about them and really understand the other side. Because when you put personality into words like the way that they're doing it, it's hard to really know exactly what that means. Because as you were reading from what you were reading from, I'm thinking, what exactly does that mean? And it takes someone like you, again, to interpret it.
Well, and I think it's easier to talk about a specific individual.
So if you had, say, a couple in front of you and you had the typology from each of them, you could put it into very concrete terms in terms of their personality and how they operate and how they might conflict, rather than, because, we're trying to reduce all human beings into 16 different types. And so I'm guessing there's a lot of variation within each of
Absolutely.
those,
Because
types.
all the scores are going to be different.
And just personal preferences and the way you talk and the way you act and that sort of thing. I'm sure that there are things that aren't necessarily captured by the Myers-Briggs.
Yes, and one of the other things that is important is that these are preferences that we're born with. And although they're not in concrete, they are preferences like handedness. I can use my left hand, but I prefer to use my right. And sometimes in families, parents want their kids to be a certain way. And so they will attempt to shape them in that way. It doesn't work very well. And so better that people get to be who they genuinely are, and then we learn and grow and develop and expand. But we have to kind of consolidate in our temperament and then expand. And it doesn't help to do it the opposite way.
So we have to get to know who we are and accept that, become familiar with that, individuate from what we were being told we should be aside from what we are. And then from there, we can branch out and become more flexible.
Yeah. So for sensing people, they can be rewarded by extra pleasures or possessions. So for that person to give them something tangible, maybe flowers, maybe...
Massage?
Yeah, massage. That's a great one. Introverts are going to want special freedoms or opportunities. An afternoon off. would be great for that person. A tangible thing is not going to work.
Did you say introverts or intuitives?
Intuitives.
Okay, so intuitives want
Special freedoms or opportunities.
intangible benefits.
Yes.
Like what kind of a thing would you
So
give?
an afternoon off. It might be an experience. So a ticket to something so that I could choose what I want to do. So there's some freedom involved. Thinking types are especially supported and rewarded by new or additional dignity or authority. So a promotion, a recognition. At Antioch, we have an annual picnic, and people are given awards. We have a Teacher of the Year, blah, blah.
The introvert-extrovert thing, tell me if this is correct, is that to reward an introvert, you would want to give them time off or a office that's very far away from other people.
An office with a door.
With a door. And extroverts, you want to throw a party for them.
So here's an example, and I'm assuming that she would be okay with this. My colleague, Sandy, grades papers by sitting in a sofa in a public lounge in psychology.
I've seen her there, yeah.
Yes. I go to the library where people can't talk to me, or I close my door. It's just fascinating to me that she gets that work done in the middle of people talking and interrupting her. And she thrives on that.
And some people love to have parties at our university.
Yes.
Their birthday or
yes.
whatever.
Holidays.
And then some people will say, do not throw a party for me. I'm retiring or I'm quitting. I love you all.
Yes.
Do not have a party for me. I won't enjoy that.
Exactly.
And the other side will say, what a party pooper. Why are you being so negative? When for them, it might just be that they're introverted. And
That's right.
It doesn't give them any pleasure to have a big party where the focus is on them.
No. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we all got to say
Yeah.
what it is we want?
Right, because I imagine the party poopers of the world think of themselves as being oppressed. There's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be that way. They're negative.
And especially in couples. So when we want to give gifts to each other or support each other, we often give what we want
Yeah.
or what is supportive for us.
Yeah.
And then we get disappointed when the person to whom we're giving it says, actually, I don't like this. Many of us are particular about food.
Yeah.
So when someone is ill, we have to ask them, okay, what are your dietary needs and specialties and what can I bring you? Rather than just in the old days, you showed up with food and the person ate it, or you came over for dinner and you ate what was on the table.
Whether you were allergic to it or not.
That's right.
So you're saying that we should be the same with personality types, that we should say, before we give a gift, we should say, what sort of gift do you appreciate typically? I'm allergic to extroversion. Do not give me extroversion.
Do not throw me a party.
I break out in hives when you throw a party for me.
That is right.
Well, to me, the most powerful idea in this is the general idea that someone that annoys you is not necessarily wrong. They're just sensing the world differently, or their personality is different. And you're both right, but you're just seeing the world differently or seeing something differently.
And it enriches us to be curious about the other.
Right. Because it's so easy to say, that person is always late. They're flaky. They have a flaw.
And I'm not important to them.
Right. Right. They obviously don't care about me because they don't show up on time, rather than understanding that their personality is such that they just perceive the world differently, or they perceive time differently, they perceive scheduling differently.
Yes.
And they still very much value me, but they don't know that I value being on time as much as I do. And understanding that difference doesn't necessarily mean what I think it means is a powerful idea.
One of the things that Anne DeVore, who is a Jungian analyst in the area, talked about in a workshop she gave, is when we are tired and exhausted and overwhelmed by our jobs, we are probably working against type. And so again, if we can shift ourselves or the job or find a different job that more suits us, it's going to be easier for us. So why swim upriver unless we absolutely have to?
Yeah, that seems like a really good shorthand to this. Is at the end of the workday, if you're exhausted and you don't have any energy afterwards, then maybe you're not in the right job for your personality type. Whereas some people leave their job completely energized.
Exactly.
They come home and they're like, I still got energy left in the day. I remember I used to work at a Foot Locker.
Ah.
And at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I remember I would come home and I would, this is when I was in college, and I would just veg out for hours and go to bed and then wake up the next morning. And I remember thinking, man, is this what being a working stiff is like? Because I hate this.
Yeah.
Working at Antioch and being a therapist, I have so much energy at the end of the day. I really do.
Yeah.
I feel so, I don't know, connected to the universe sometimes, when I'm doing this work, and it's not fatiguing at all to me. People often say, because I work a lot of hours during the week. People say, how do you do it? So a student just sent that to me today. How do you do it? I actually don't feel fatigued. I actually enjoy what I do. So maybe I'm in the right job given my personality.
So you're
type.
working in the flow rather than against the flow.
And so Foot Locker, no. Therapist, professor, yes.
Yes. We recently, in the clinical mental health counseling program, shifted to a different plan of study, which is how the students organize their courses. And we had to figure out who needed to sign that form if they wanted to change to the increased credit plan. And we were supposed to, as faculty members, figure that out and contact the students and keep track of it. I was almost in tears. I was so overwhelmed. And we have people in our program who do those kinds of things very well. They are very sensing oriented, very detail oriented, can figure all that out, and had it color coded for us, and this meant that, and it was just overwhelming. And I have a contract with that person to take her out to a really, really nice dinner. I could not have done that. I physically, intellectually, and emotionally could not have done that.
Yeah, I think I have things like that too, where they are seemingly easy tasks that I avoid, and when I sit down to do it, I get distracted easily, and I'll come up with any excuse but to do it, and I'm thinking it's only going to take an hour. Just sit down and do it, and as I start combing my way through it. At the university, I'm in charge of outcomes in the CFT department, and there are parts of it that I really enjoy, the bigger picture stuff. But the individual tasks of editing charts and putting in numbers and evaluating averages and stuff, I can do all of it easily. But there's something about it that makes having a GA just wonderful.
Yes. So that's sensing versus intuiting, right there.
Sensing versus intuiting. So which one am I?
The sensing is the fact stuff. So you're intuitive, you see the big picture.
Yeah.
You want the results, you want the overview, you want the big data.
Yeah.
What is the meaning of this?
Yeah.
But collating and collecting and analyzing the data is...
I can do that.
Absolutely.
And it's not impossible for me to do, but in that instance anyway, it's very. I sit down and I go, oh my God, and that my GA, she does it in like 15 minutes.
Right.
She's like, bup, 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 bup. And she's like, and she doesn't have a frown on her face. She's happy, and I'm like, oh, thank God you did that. I'm just so happy,
That's right.
putting her name on the authorship and everything.
That's right.
But I wonder if in other areas in my life when I actually am very sensing, because I feel like that description fits me as well in other instances where
so you're going to be cuspy on the... So you're not going to be at one end or the other of the continuum. You're going to be someplace toward the middle.
Yeah, there's some... I feel like there's other things where I'm very detail-oriented, or I can be extremely minute and interested in the minutia.
I can do APA citation information.
Yeah.
I love it.
What are other examples of sensing?
My sister, who's a sensing person, is an accountant.
Yeah.
And so she comes over and cleans up my books 2 or 3 or 4 times a year because I get all befuddled. And once I get off, I don't know where the error is. I can't find the error. For her, it's like a detective novel.
Yeah.
She just adores it. She thinks it's fun.
All right, Anne. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
I have one more thing, though.
Okay.
It's Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing smile does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And that typifies for me the Myers-Briggs and Jungian philosophy.
I like it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today, Ann.
You are so welcome. I've enjoyed it again.
That does it for another episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining us out there, and please take care of yourself. Hello and welcome to Psychology in Seattle. I'm your host, Kirk Honda, licensed therapist.
I'm Mandy, Kirk's cousin.
And I'm Humberto Castañeda. I recreate World War I dogfights.
Please visit psychologyinseattle.com. Go there and donate, people. Donate. There's been a long time since I've seen anyone donate, so donate.
I'm going to go tonight and donate.
Or send us a message at contact@psychologyinseattle.com. We always love hearing from our listeners, so send the love, people. And you can support us by telling friends about us, particularly if they're in the field. Today, we have a special guest back on the podcast, Dr. Ann Blake. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
She's my new BFF, and she's also a coworker. We are both professors at Antioch University. She is here to talk about the Myers-Briggs test. Berto and Mandy filled out the Myers-Briggs test a couple weeks ago and has tabulated the results, and she's here to tell Berto and Mandy about their psychological preferences in how they perceive the world and make decisions.
That's correct.
Sound good?
That's totally correct.
Woo.
All right.
Although, will this result in me being like hospitalized or put in the hospital bed?
Well, we'll see.
Like straight jacket?
Well, never mind the two men with the big net.
They're here to help me.
Yeah.
Only if you want all that.
So we'll start off with a brief introduction since we did an episode previously about the Myers-Briggs, which you can listen to. So take it away, Ann.
All right. Well, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is based on some work that C.G. Jung did. C.G. Jung was a contemporary of Freud's, and so in the late 1800s, C.G. Jung died in 1961. So in the 1950s, Isabel Myers and Catherine Briggs devised the MBTI based on Jung's 4 psychological types. This is just an instrument to give people some information about themselves.
Umberto, are you nervous?
I am not actually nervous. I am actually curious.
I've never taken this, but you have.
I have taken it before.
Who would like to go first?
Ladies first.
Oh, well, I guess that's me.
All right,
Let's do
Mandy.
it. All right.
The lady. On extraversion, introversion, you're just slightly more extroverted than introverted. Same with sensing and intuiting. You're just slightly more sensing than intuitive. The feeling and judging are both very similar in terms of the moderate. So what that means is that you're not really specific in your typology, that you've got lots of flexibility, and you can go left or right, you can go up or down. And the one way at the bottom on the left, the ESFJ, is what you came out as. But you can also see that because you have slight and moderate scores, you're also in 3 other quadrants. And so you can use the characteristics and preferences and skills in all those. So let's just read the ESFJ.
Okay. ESFJ. Warm-hearted, conscientious, and cooperative. Want harmony in their environment, work with determination to establish it. Like to work with others to complete tasks accurately and on time. Loyal, follow through even in small matters. Notice what others need in their day-to-day lives and to provide it. Want to be appreciated for who they are and for what they contribute.
Is that you?
I don't know, is that me?
What do you think? Do you think that's you?
Well, I haven't read any of the other boxes, so I don't have any comparison to think like, oh, that's me. That's me too. But it sounds like me. Not that I want to be like, all these good things are me. That's not very humble.
So you have both extroversion, which is, again, getting energized by interacting with people, as well as introversion, which are at the top. And that is getting your batteries recharged by being alone. You've got some back and forth on that. You tend to be only slightly more extroverted than introverted. And the same with sensing and intuiting. So sensing, again, is about making sense of the world via your senses. So people who are sensing get it about time, they get it about schedule, they get it about factual things. And people who are intuitive are more, I just know this because it's true for me.
I'm the feeling one, right?
S is sensing, just slightly more than intuiting.
Oh, well, I'm more about the scheduling and the organized.
Well, that's the J.
Oh.
That's the J, for
J.
sure. I mean, people who are sensing pay attention to scheduling. People who are J really want things organized and scheduled and on the calendar. But again, you're slight there.
Okay.
So you're also perceptive, which is about possibilities. So in some senses, Mandy, it's almost more like a dilettante, which means that you can do many things, but it might be hard to figure out exactly which direction you want to go, because all options are possible.
Mandy is planning another family reunion. She says that we're planning it, but actually Mandy is planning it, and I'm just sort of along for the ride.
I just CC you on everything.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
It's emerging naturally. There's actually a Japanese American museum in Yakima, which is where our Japanese American ancestors are from Yakima, Washington. From Wapato, and there's a display there with our relatives on the wall. I mean, not them, but pictures of them. And they're doing
heads.
They're doing some sort of dedication over the Memorial Day weekend, and we're gonna go and with our whole family. And
That's excellent.
She's organizing it all. She's got all the dates. She's telling everyone what's up, and so she's very. Much a planner and very organized, extremely organized.
And so are you and your day book.
Yeah, I'm very organized.
You know that song, Eyes Without a Face?
Yes.
I always thought that was by the Talking Heads. Mm-hmm. Isn't that weird? Like, because it was Eyes Without a Face, and it was like Talking Heads.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it was like a head. I don't know.
That relates to what we were talking about, how...
Because we were talking about your family portraits, and so I was thinking of like all your family's heads on the wall talking.
Why did I ask? I should have just moved on.
I really don't know how the wiring works in there.
We'll talk about that next.
You're on deck. Don't worry.
But read that description again, Mandy. I want to hear that. I want to hear that one again.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Warm-hearted.
Do you think you're warm-hearted?
Gosh, I don't know. You can ask me every adjective that comes up. Yeah. Yes. I think I am.
Yeah.
I could be a cold bitch too. Don't doubt that.
Yeah. Don't doubt that.
But I think I'm pretty loving.
Yeah.
Conscientious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cooperative.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not that cooperative. I don't know. Maybe.
But again, you're cuspy on some of those things.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of stubborn.
Do you want harmony in your environment?
Yeah. Yeah. But who doesn't? Oh, what's the opposite? Enjoys conflict in life.
Well, introverts would not necessarily emphasize that as a preference. They wouldn't say in their description they want disharmony, but that's not an emphasis.
Not important. It's not as important.
Yeah, no, I do. I don't like things simmering or disagreements or having being on the outs with somebody. I don't like that.
Are you comfortable in uncomfortable situations?
Are you comfortable when you're uncomfortable?
No, but meaning socially uncomfortable situations. Do those make you uncomfortable, or are you someone that can kind of roll with the punches?
No, I see the part of it that I would always say that I'm extroverted because I'm loud and like to talk to people, but I'm also pretty. Like, I'd be uncomfortable in an uncomfortable situation. I'm uncomfortable in a group setting where I don't know anyone, or I only know one person, but that one person knows other people, and they're going to go and talk to those other people, and I'd be like, I'm so awkward, I don't know how to jump in and just, hey.
I think you have a normal level of extroverted discomfort, but on the scale of discomfort, you're extremely comfortable with, in my observation, befriending random people. You and I have met random people before.
That is under different pretenses, not me normal. That's not me normal. That might be me on cocktails.
Well, you know what? I always thought that Material Girl was sang by Cyndi Lauper.
Dude, stay on point, please.
You said that.
No, what?
You were singing
Okay,
that. I was
now
like,
you're distorting
dude, that's
history.
Material Girl. Madonna?
Show me the recording where that's true. No, you don't have it.
Anyway, I don't know. I do like to be alone. I don't know. I feel like it's a bad trait of mine, but like I'm not proud of it. Like, you want to do nice things. It's like you want to be selfless, but you want somebody to notice and be like,
Right.
I give a shit that you did this. It's like, I did all this. Just acknowledge. All you have to say is, hey, thanks for doing that. Or, hey, you did that. I noticed. And it makes a difference then, like, why do I do this when I have a tendency to be a doormat? Because you want to do all these things for people because you like them or you care about them, but you can end up, they just take. People are takers, and I'm a giver, and somewhere in here is like giver trait, you know?
Right.
And that's a bad thing for me.
Would you say, like, would you want to be famous, for example? Like
No.
people going like, oh, it's Mandy. Oh my God.
No, I've never thought about that. No.
Okay.
When you're introverted, what is that like? Because the test seems to put you just slightly extroverted as opposed
That's
to...
surprising to me. I would have really been like a given, like, yeah, I'm extroverted.
Do you sometimes find yourself just needing to be alone for a while, like for a night, to recharge your battery? Or
Yeah, I like that.
That's introversion.
Oh, well, who doesn't like that?
Some people don't.
That's right.
Well, I mean, it's different because I live alone. I don't have anybody who'd be around me anyway.
Don't you want to recharge the battery the night before? The next night? Everybody, wait, what are we talking about?
God.
I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention.
I feel like I'm not the most social person, but like I can make plans every night of the week.
Right.
But then like that one night I'm happy. I'm like, ugh, I'm just going to do nothing and be by myself for a little bit.
Right.
But I feel like everybody does that.
When you say, but doesn't everybody does that, that's true for you because you've got 4 squares out of the 16 that make sense in terms of you're taking the test. So for you, you've got that wider band of behaviors and preferences and talents.
I'm 25% of everything.
You are. You are.
Do many people only get 1 square heavily?
I wish I knew the statistics on that, but lots of people, like Umberto comes up with 2.
Oh, really?
I mostly come up with 1.
Really?
I do a little tiny bit of
Is 4
fluctuation.
common, or do people get 6? Do people get 8? I mean, like, you really gotta, like, how many is the most you'd say on?
There was a girl that got 5 one time. It was crazy. You're close to breaking the record. You're close to breaking the record.
I'm curious though, like, is 4 like, actually that's a lot. Most people don't get 4, or, you know.
I don't know those statistics, but that's a really
For you, as in the history of your proctoring, you'd say, well, I've had a couple 6s.
So here's where my typology comes in, and that is thinking is my inferior function. And so to do logical, sequential, categorizing and cataloging, which I can't even say, that's really hard for me. So I've never paid attention to that, but I will from now on. Thank you.
So what's Mandy's shadow?
Ooh,
What's a shadow?
that is shadow. A shadow is that which we are not willing to accept as us. So the things that we admire in other people, because we're externalizing that, and the people and the things that we get irritated by in other people, that's our shadow. And that is really us, but it's somewhat connected with our inferior functioning. Now, you don't have much inferior functioning because you're so balanced.
Wow.
Well,
So my thinking and feeling score is very clear. You don't have any clears and you don't have any very clears. You just got moderates and slights. So I'm not sure Mandy has a shadow. I think Mandy's really well balanced.
Okay.
booyah.
So very... What about very unbalanced people? Are they all her shadow?
Yes, exactly. That's her shadow.
Oh, I'm your shadow, Mandy.
Oh, God. Why couldn't we just have left it with, I don't have a shadow?
Well, let me ask you, Mandy, do very extroverted people or very introverted people bother you? Like someone who, is very extroverted and socializes a lot, or someone who would never socialize, seemingly.
Woo! Let's go to the party. Come on, let's do it. Woo!
Oh, God. Well, he's really bothering me. Whatever he is, there's maybe no category for him.
So that would be your shadow. Maybe it's like...
Oh, okay. I don't know. Really extroverted? Is that like really loud people? Because I have a coworker who's so loud and I want to punch her in the face.
No, not necessarily. I mean,
okay.
It's just people who get a lot of energy by socializing and really don't ever need to be alone. They don't prefer it.
So what are your annoyances and what are your admirations? What characteristics do you admire besides Umberto?
Oh, I did not say that.
Oh, you didn't need to.
Who do you admire and what about them?
I have a very agreeable best friend who's just like, she's like a kindergarten teacher where it's just so kind and so genuine, so pure, and her, just doesn't seem like things get her as riled, or that she seems to, have as much evil thoughts as I do.
Why do you look at me when you say that? That's
So, just somebody who seems to write it out. Doesn't even have never even comes to me about problems with her significant other. I'm just like, God, you're so balanced. Doesn't anything ever, I'm sure, of course it does, but it's not like me or,
So there's the thing right there. So admiring and putting her up on a pedestal, sort of, and not like me. And so the theory is that those things that you admire about your friend are you, but they're just not as strong in you. You don't feel at home with that coat on. And there's your growing edge, is to not be like somebody else, but take that on and see what that's like for you to be kind and balanced and unruffled, unlike those curtains.
And that's a particular Jungian psychology way of putting it.
Yeah. So it's that what we project out into the population, into society as not us, really is us. And that we shortchange ourselves by saying, well, that's not me. It is you. It's not as developed as it is in your friend. But as we go through life, then those are the things that we can develop more to be more whole, more fully ourselves. C.G. Jung talked about people not really becoming adult until 35, and probably because we live longer now, it might take even longer. And so what about things or people who annoy you?
Disorganization. Somebody doesn't seem to have a handle on things, where I would be like, I want to put a handle on this.
Yeah.
Or I need to know what's going on. You need to tell me,
Yeah. So again...
Or mess. That kind of includes
Yep.
lifestyle,
Yep. So that could be part of your shadow, probably is. And in terms of being a fuller, wholer human being over time, it might be a little useful for you to lighten up a little bit and not... We don't want you to be a slob or to...
lighten up.
And have times when you can be a little messy or a little less organized.
I get messy when I'm alone. Only when I'm alone. Is that weird?
All right, Berto?
Okay.
I'm ready, man. Give me some ammunition.
So, Umberto, so yours is extroverted, intuitive, thinking, and perceiving. And look at yours. You've got very clear in extroversion. You've got very clear in intuition. You have a slight in thinking, feeling. So those two aren't very different in you. You could go both ways. And then perceiving is clear. So a little more certainly than moderate, and so your preference is more in terms of being flexible and spontaneous. Your extroversion about focusing your attention on the outer world of people and things is very clear. Your intuition about taking in information from patterns and the big picture and possibilities is very clear. Thinking, feeling, you could go both ways in terms of logic, which is thinking, and values and subjective evaluation, which is feeling. How about reading the ENTP?
ENTP, which is, again, extrovert, intuition, thinking, perceiving.
Correct.
That says it's these type of top-tier, one-of-a-kind individuals are, well, okay, maybe I added that part, but they're quick, ingenious, stimulating, alert, and outspoken. They're resourceful in solving new and challenging problems, adept at generating conceptual possibilities and then analyzing them strategically, good at reading other people, bored by routine, will seldom do the same thing the same way, apt to turn to one new interest after another.
Seldom do the same thing the same way. Every time we start the podcast, what does Berto do?
So wait, that's not my fault though. Like, it's a changing marketplace. It's hard to get work. So I change jobs a lot, but that's not because I want to.
Interesting.
And I wonder if you would get bored. You might not want to change as much as you do, but would you get bored if it was the same thing every day?
I get bored of the same jobs. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is not about valuing. It's about differences, and when we know ourselves and others, we can just get along more easily.
It's not about who's better.
No, it's not. I mean, that's been decided already.
We are, yeah.
When we did the, what was the other thing?
Yeah. I'm 25% of everything.
What's the personality
I'm the
thing?
perfect balance. I'm your well-balanced breakfast.
MMPI?
Okay?
Yeah, the MMPI.
So here, in the very clear, again, if we had a continuum, that had extroversion, introversion, you would be way, way, way high on extroversion. In terms of that shadow we were talking about, it's likely that people who are very quiet and retiring just irk you a little.
Oh, you can't even understand how much I get irked by this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so frustrating. Like, I can't tell you so many times at work and in other contexts. But at work, see, in other contexts, I can just bypass, move along, not have to do it. But at work, you have no choice, right? Sometimes you have no choice. And so there's those folks, and they mean well, I'm sure, but they're sitting there, and you try to extract data or information from them, and it's just like a rock, a wall with no... Oh my God. Yes.
These are other dogfight trainers.
Yes. What? Yes. No, World War I was brutal.
Right.
So there's a lot of vets that I talk to, and they're very introverted. So.
Right. Well.
So your challenge, should you accept it, is about over time seeing the value in that other perspective and seeing that part in you. Because again, if you only use your right hand for things, your left hand's going to atrophy.
Oh, he uses his left hand too.
So, I mean, here's the challenge that I have, right? I think you're absolutely right. Like that, this makes conceptually a lot of sense, you guys. We're talking seriously about psychology here. You know, like I'm trying to make a connection with someone, and they're just not opening up. So it's so difficult. But you're right that I feel like that's a challenge that I have.
And they might be having a similar kind of a experience on the other side. It's like, why can't he just let me be quiet?
Yes, I can totally imagine that.
And so similarly on the sensing, intuiting, yes, you're so intuitive. And I wonder if you get, let's just say, annoyed at detail.
Yes, tremendously so. Yes.
Yeah, Berto has complained to me often about when he's at work and he gets put down and put in his place and rejected for his big picture thinking, right?
Yes. What happens is, again, it's another area for growth.
Good job.
I had an ongoing joke with a friend of mine about the lazy comedian. And the thing was, it's not going to be funny now, but we always imagined this lazy comedian who basically did things like, so a man walks into the bar. Well, you get the rest of it. You know where I'm going with this, right? And so they don't have to do the punchline because you get where I'm going with it. So that's how I feel a lot. It's like, look, I'm going to propose a big idea. If you're not smart enough to connect the dots and see where this is going, then I'm not going to have time or patience to connect the dots for you.
Yeah.
And that does happen to me a lot. And it does get in the way because a lot of people, people that I interact with that happen to not be like that, they might be expecting or wanting connected dots that they can relate to.
Yeah. So this one, the sensing intuition, is the one that does have more discomfort between people than any of the other aspects, any of the other pairs. And so I told the story to Kirk earlier about my sister and I. So I'm fairly intuitive and she's fairly sensing. And so when we talk to our brothers on the phone, then we'll call the other sister. And if I am the one to call my brothers, my sister will have all these questions about, well, and then what happened and why was that? And so give me details, give me facts. I have none of that. It was a great conversation. That person's either doing well or doing poorly. I have a sensation. I have a intuitive sense about the situation, but I don't have facts. And it's frustrating to her. It's a little frustrating to me to be asked for those facts. For her, just let me finish that one thing because I see you cogitating over there. For her, when she talks to our brothers and then we call each other, she's got all this information. It's just like overwhelming to me, detail. And then she says, backing up, and she'll give me the backstory. That's way more information than I want.
Right.
And because we know that a bit about each other, we kind of laugh about it and we are playful about it. And you're thinking about something.
Well, this is fascinating because I have some sort of weird combination of this that happens to me. So, as an example, someone who's close to me, this happens frequently. There is an event that happened or someone that did something, and I want to hear the story. And actually, I experience what you were saying your sister experiences, which is I want details. I actually do want details.
You do?
Because to me, I want to experience. I want to have been there. I want to have been there, and I missed out on this thing, and I'm pissed off that I wasn't there. So I want like recreate the perfect simulation of what happened.
Yeah.
The flip side is, if they're telling me a story about something that they care about that happened to them that I haven't requested, I immediately start zoning this way and like get to the point.
So it depends on your interest. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
And then
Good.
I think it's the same way when I'm recounting. It's like, if I'm telling you about the party and the thing that we did, I want you to hear all of it because it's the experience. I want to recreate that experience because you weren't there and I'm pissed you weren't there. Right? I'm exaggerating. And then on the other hand, if you're asking me about like, how was your day at work? I'm like, just don't worry about it. You know?
So this is a great example of this test and these descriptors are not boxes that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fluidity to all of us. And Mandy, you have a little more fluidity because, yes, you're bobbing your head back and forth. That's cool. And Umberto, you have a little less fluidity, but you can
Robot.
be different in different situations and depending on what's interesting to you. Because all of these are available to all of us.
Right. So this one's interesting because you were asking about people that we admire.
Yeah.
So I actually really admire organized people that have a plan and that can follow those plans.
Yeah. Like Mandy.
Yes, like Mandy.
Oh, you aspire
I aspire to be
me.
like Mandy. More. No, but seriously, like, you know, if you can plan these complex like wedding things or not weddings, but family reunions and things.
I could do a wedding.
That's impressive.
Call me. I'll do it.
Now, it happens
Oh,
to
speaking
be-
of weddings, someone asked me to marry them.
Oh, really?
You did that recently, right?
You
What?
asked Kurt to marry you?
Well, no, I mean, you know, when
That's
you
not legal.
officiate,
It's
when you
not legal.
officiate.
Oh, I was like, somebody proposed, a crazy person proposed to you?
Yeah.
And you didn't tell me?
Yeah.
No offense, person out there, but that's crazy.
No offense, fictional person that I thought was real, but now is not.
They asked for you to perform their wedding.
Yeah.
Perform at their wedding.
No, officiate.
Get out. Did you say
You did
yes?
that. You did that,
I
right?
did.
Yeah, well-
I'm ordained by the Universal Life Church. Thank you.
Wow, see.
See?
Did you do it too? Have you done it?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to talk to you guys to find out about this.
One of these people isn't like the other.
Yeah.
I'm going to get ordained in satanic church tonight.
Well, I thought as a marital therapist that has seen a lot of divorces and cheating on people and all that kind of stuff, I should also experience the other side of life.
Happiness and
The
joy
beginning?
and celebration.
Before all the divorces and all
right.
that.
Yeah.
Just joking.
Oh, wait, did you say yes?
Yeah, but I'm nervous about it because I have no idea. But I talked to Eric Warren, our friend, who's,
Yeah. He does it all the time.
who's done hundreds of them.
Yes.
And he gave me the rundown, but I still...
These are strangers, though.
No, they're friends.
Oh,
Yeah. No, not...
I was like, a random
Like,
stranger?
someone just calls me out of the blue.
I was like, a listener asked you to perform their wedding. They didn't propose, but they asked you to perform their wedding.
So you've married someone?
Yeah.
That just amazing.
Are they still together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. My first marriage is coming up on 1 year.
So literally anyone can marry people.
The legal.
You have to-
Even an ESFJ.
Well, but my point was like, okay, so you
Yes,
can plan
yes.
these weddings and these
Yes,
family reunions,
yes.
and I admire that. And
Yeah.
when I plan things and I really put my whole into it, I actually tend to be obsessive about it, and I actually do a good job.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it takes a lot of mental effort.
There you
to
go.
Do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So when we do things that are not in our current typology, because we can expand and broaden ourselves and fulfill ourselves, it takes more effort.
Right.
We were talking earlier, Kirk and I, about jobs, that when we have jobs that don't fit our typology well enough, we are fatigued a lot. So my job requires a lot of thinking and a lot of organizing. It's not my strongest suits. I can do it, but I get tired.
Right.
You've had a lot of jobs where you have to actually sit and just work
Yes.
by yourself.
Yes.
Do you find that it's not tedious?
It is tedious.
Oh, it is. So if you had a dream job, would it be like the CEO or the dream maker, the guy who comes up with the ideas and then everyone else implements it?
Yeah, totally. Like here's the dream job, nondescript of like what what industry or whatever. I am in a room. It's filled with people. There are whiteboards everywhere and lots of windows, and I just get to talk and draw bad drawings on the whiteboards, and they turn my thoughts into reality, and we make billions of dollars together.
Sounds like
ENTP. There you go.
And then, and I don't make schedules. I just out of my brain comes ideas, and people turn them into reality.
Well, and there are jobs like that.
Right.
So when you see Despicable Me and all those minions, you just drool at the mouth, right?
Well, no. To be fair, because I am a thinker. No, to be fair, I actually, but part of my extroversion is a collaborative extroversion. That's why I like parties. That's why I like going out. I actually don't like, because I've worked with someone like the Despicable Me person that you're mentioning. I don't like that. I actually like more like, hey, we're all equals here. But you will listen to my ideas, and I won't lift a pen. Let's get that clear. But I'm not evil. You're not my minion.
Yeah.
And so again, that's a really great example, Umberto, about it's valuable to have all the different kinds of typologies around us, depending on the task,
right.
So that somebody can do what she or he does best, and you can do what you do best.
Right.
Yeah, and you're painting it kind of negatively. Berto and I, we've been in a band together. We were in a band together for a long time, a couple bands. And we had the most elaborate live shows in Seattle.
Yes.
Because Berto and I are both on the same page that we both think like this, that we want lots of things happening and we have lots of ideas. So we'll be in the car and we'll be like, ooh, what if we got this? And then we implement it. You know, we actually like go. So, I mean, it was crazy. For you music nerds out there, get this. We had our own sound system that we would bring to the club.
Right.
All of us would have headphones on with a different audio feed of the live sound, and there was barely anything that was pre-recorded.
Right.
And in the end, there was nothing pre-recorded.
Right.
We had a video. I would make a video that synced up with the song exactly. So when we changed each measure, the scene would change, and I picked different video stuff that would match the mood. We had computers and several keyboards and like drum sounds and but it was all live, and it was crazy.
We had two keyboardists, electronic drummer, meaning someone playing an electronic drum kit.
4 singers.
Yeah, 4 singers.
4 microphones.
And they were playing exactly to a click, meaning, and that's not an easy thing for a lot of drummers to do, because they had to stay exactly in sync with the video. If it got off, the show was ruined.
And it never happened.
And it never happened.
Yeah. Because we practiced a lot.
A lot.
Yeah. So it was a lot of creativity, a lot of idea, a lot of dreams that were coming alive on stage at Chop Suey.
But I think it was so that was a good combination of personalities in a way, because Kirk was more of the planner and kind of, let's get a schedule, let's do this. I was able to use my creativity and stuff like that, but in that framework of because I think if I had been left to my own devices, I have all the same ideas, but I don't know if I would have gone and done them. And then maybe Kirk by himself would have maybe had some ideas, but not had a creative partner that was excited about also doing the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a really nice combination, yeah.
And Mandy, did you ever see these shows?
No.
Yeah, you did. You came to see us at Mars Bar when our bandmate screamed at the sound guy, and our grandma had to hear him swear at him. Remember that? You were there, right?
Of course, but I don't remember the dreams coming alive that night.
Okay. Did we have a video? Did we have a video that night?
This is fantastic because, see, in our memory, we had these grandiose things, but it's like that Family Guy episode where the reality is we're all high and stoned, and the audience is like, what the hell is going on?
I think it was better in your mind.
Well, clearly it was better in our mind. That's the whole.
I know I wasn't high, and I don't remember my mind being blown, but I'm sure in some universe it really rocked.
In the universe of my mind, it was
badass.
Yeah. You don't even remember the video?
Those dreams came true somewhere.
Maybe we didn't have the video.
There was no enchilada.
We had the Liquid Now thing, but it was nowhere near. It was.
Oh.
No, this was not our show with Carlos and.
Okay.
This was before that.
And do you still do this? Because I'm wanting to see it, but
Are dreams still coming true?
Our bands are in current hiatus, but Umberto was actually supposed to complete his CD of.
I am doing that this year.
Of Billy Joel style songs with piano, and he promised the podcast listeners that he would provide a complete buyable iTunes thing by July or something, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's the goal. Yes.
Yeah.
The listeners want to know.
I know.
Your fans.
It's really good. I've heard it, some of it. It's really awesome. Berto actually had a song that was on a TV show. He sold a song to a TV show.
Well, it was on the intro of a TV show. Yeah.
What show?
A Canadian TV show south of nowhere.
Like it was a 90210 kind of
Yeah.
show, and it was like it started off with Berto singing the song.
Oh, I want to hear it.
And you get royalties, right?
I did get some, not a lot of money, but I got a little bit.
Okay, we ready for phase 2? Tough or Bluff. So Tough or Bluff is a game we play where we say a statement and you try to guess whether we're bluffing or we're toughing, if that makes any sense to you at
What
all.
is the difference?
True or false? True or false?
Yeah, true or false.
False is bluff.
Bluff is we're bluffing you,
Oh.
and tough is it's tough, it's true.
Okay, thank you.
So don't look at my screen because it has the answers. All right. Tough or bluff. Serotonin stimulates childbirth or contractions in the uterus, and it also directs attachment with loved ones. So serotonin not only stimulates childbirth, but it also directs attachment with loved ones. Mandy, tough or bluff?
Gosh, I should know this, shouldn't I? I haven't had a child, though, so I don't have to know it.
Yeah.
We'll go with tough.
Okay.
Serotonin increases the attachment to the loved ones?
It's associated with attachment and childbirth, yeah.
Oh, in childbirth. Tough.
And I should know this too. And I can't do the tougher bluff, but I'll do false.
That's bluff.
That's bluff.
That's bluff.
So you're bluffing. You're saying
Those-
bluff. You
those
think
point-
I'm bluffing.
I think
Yeah.
you're bluffing.
I am bluffing. It's oxytocin.
Oh, I knew that.
Yes.
I knew that.
Yes.
All right, I'll do one more and then we'll go around again. Just before his death in 1980, John Lennon told his personal assistant that if he were an American and could vote, he would vote for Ronald Reagan. Tough or bluff? Just before he died, Ronald Reagan was running for president, right, against Carter, and he told his personal assistant that he was going to vote for Ronald Reagan.
Bluff. No way. I just know.
All we are saying is give Ronald Reagan a chance to inflict war on the world. I mean, I'm going to say bluff just out of principle, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say it has to be bluff, and I hope that we're not all wrong because I would just be demoralized.
It's tough.
No.
Oh, and you
saw-
always say, where did you find
No.
that? Is
I
that
saw
true?
a documentary, and a guy went around the world interviewing everyone who had ever bumped into the Beatles before. And it was this wonderful documentary you have to watch. It's on Netflix. It's on.
What's it
it's on-
called? What's
I
it
can't remember
called?
what it's called.
Damn, send it to me.
But he found John Lennon's personal assistant, and he was interviewing him. And one of the things that came up is he said that John Lennon said if he could, he lived in New York City at the time, right?
Wow.
And he said if I could vote, I would vote for Ronald Reagan. But you see, the thing is me and Berto are huge Beatles nuts. John Lennon hated mainstream.
Yes.
So he probably sensed that there was a lot of hatred against him and just sort of wanted to say something.
be.
You know what I mean?
It was ironic.
No, but also he also was getting older, and a lot of the baby boomers started to become conservative.
Hey,
That's why Ronald Reagan got elected in the first place.
that's a good point.
we're getting personal now.
All right, tough or bluff. 65% of Elvis impersonators are of Hispanic descent.
What percent?
65.
That's just loco enough to work, man. I'll go with tough.
Could you see Humberto as a possible Elvis
Totally.
impersonator?
What's
Can you do some Hispanic Elvis right now? Sexy Spanish.
How
We do it in Spanish.
Well, what's the line he says?
Hunka hunka burning love.
Hunka hunka. Oh, wait. Burning love. Amor caliente. That's a hunka hunka. Amor caliente. I'm gonna do a Hispanic Elvis impersonator.
Can you do? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
So, what do you think? Tough or bluff?
Oh, I said tough.
All right.
I'll
Go.
say bluff. It's probably a little less.
With your improv right here, I'm going tough.
That's right.
I'm going tough.
It's
It's bluff. 65% are of Asian descent. Asian.
I've even seen them. I think I've seen all 65 of them.
So wait, can you see me as an Elvis? Actually, my mom sometimes says that I kind of look like Elvis sometimes. Although I have fantasized about a full white sequined bodysuit with a cape.
See?
Who doesn't want a cape? I mean, he could go to work every day
Tough.
with a cape. You know what I'm saying?
All right, here we go. The expression "wing it" originates from England. They have a bird in sight. It's terrible hunting, visibility, weather, etc. So they say, "Oh, just wing it," because essentially you could hit it in the wing and still get the bird down.
Ooh, that's good. That's good.
Bluff. That sounds weird.
Tough. I don't know. That sounds so okay. We hit it in the wing. Okay.
Hit it in the wing. Just wing it.
I'm bluff. No.
Did you do it? Did you?
No,
Did you
no.
change one tiny word?
Did you birdo it?
I did not Mandy it, by the way.
Oh, I don't
No,
do that. I
you
don't do
did.
that. I've
You
done that like once.
Okay, so no.
Did you split hairs?
Oxford English. It's a bluff. Oxford English Dictionary suggests that "wing it" refers to the hurried study of the role in the wings of the theater.
Ooh, that's good.
So you're like
That makes
you're like,
sense.
oh, we need a new Hamlet. Oh, I don't know. I'm just looking from the side here. Oh, we just wing it. Basically, that's it.
good.
Cram it right then in the
Yeah.
wings.
And what do they call that person who's
Understudy?
I just about had it.
Okay, tough or bluff. LA has the highest murder rate in North America. Tough or bluff. LA has the highest murder rate in North America, meaning per capita, that sort of thing.
A bluff. I bet it's someplace like Detroit or Chicago.
I was gonna go with one of those too. I'm gonna say bluff. It's DC.
Or DC.
I'm going to say bluff, and I know what of the top 100, the lowest or the second to lowest is Muskegee.
Skeeky.
I just heard that today.
Okay, well, everyone south of the border is now upset at you because you didn't even consider. But anyway, it's bluff. It's San Pedro Sula in Honduras.
Oh, this was
wait.
worldwide?
This was
I
worldwide?
said North America.
Oh no, but that's Central America.
No, it's North
No,
America.
Honduras is Central America.
I think it's North America.
No, it's Central.
I think it's North America.
Then there's no Central America.
Right, it's North and South America.
No,
You
there
just
is a
minimized
Central
all
America.
of Central America.
That's all included in North America.
No. As someone who grew up not in America,
It's South America.
that's right. We know that there's a Central America. So you pulled a
Bluff.
Mandy. You pulled a Mandy.
You pull a bird out. Well, do not. I don't.
But anyway, each year in Honduras, the city in Honduras, they have a 0.15% of the population is murdered.
Holy cow.
And Juarez is close to that.
Almost 1% of the population is murdered.
0.15% of the population is murdered.
1/10 of
In Seattle, what do you think the percentage of people are murdered in Seattle every year?
Sorry. So out of every 1,000, 1.5 are murdered.
That's right.
That's a lot.
Out of every 10,000, 15 are
Yeah.
murdered out of every 10,000.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of people.
So what about in Seattle?
So maybe 500 out of 500,000. 0.01.
It's 0.003.
Wow.
We have very few murders in Seattle.
That's crazy.
About 20 people in Seattle are murdered every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was thinking more 500.
And each one is reported on the news to make it seem like people are getting killed all the time.
Exactly.
If Seattle had the same murder rate as Juarez, which I've been to before, there would be about 1,000 murders instead of 20.
You've been to Ciudad Juarez?
Yeah, and it didn't seem dangerous to me. I bought a popsicle
When?
2000,
Oh, that's 2,000, dude.
but it was considered to be very dangerous at the time as well.
But you really wanted that popsicle.
I really wanted a limon Mexican pop. Like, you know, they call them something. There's a Mexican popsicle they sell on the street. Makes my mater wow.
My matter, wow.
Okay, all right, one more and then we'll go around. An Australian accidentally discovered that lithium makes guinea pigs docile, and in so doing, stumbled upon a treatment for bipolar. An Australian accidentally discovered that lithium makes guinea pigs docile. I wonder what he was doing with lithium to guinea pigs. But he was doing something to guinea pigs with lithium and suddenly discovered it made him docile and then thought, I wonder if this works for humans. And that's where lithium, which is still being used to treat bipolar, came from. Tough or bluff, Mandy?
Tough.
I mean, it sounds very believable, so I'm going to say bluff.
So in Ashland, Oregon, they have lithium in the water, and I actually tasted it last time I was there. It doesn't taste very good.
Oh.
A fountain in the middle of the town that you can go up and taste the lithium. It's really yucky.
Ugh.
So the question is whether it was
Is everyone really mellow in that town?
if they drink that icky water.
Yeah.
But people are pretty mellow in Ashland. It's a nice place to be. Accidental discovery. Oh, no. Bluff.
Bluff. It's tough.
Is it?
Oh, no.
No, it sounded really believable.
According to the interweb, it's tough. So consider it fact, friends. Consider it fact. Mandy, tough or bluff?
I already said tough.
No, it's your turn.
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
It's your turn.
You're looking up the answers on your phone, aren't you?
No, I'm not cheating. I'm not pulling an Umberto.
I cheat now?
I
I'm being
split
accused
hairs.
I'm being accused of too many things.
I'm being accused.
Listen, just go ahead and Mandy it.
Oh my God.
All right, so it's your turn.
Okay,
Go.
all right. I thought I had a good one, but I lost it.
No, it's your turn to say tough or bluff.
Yeah. All right. No, it's not. Don't play with me. 71% of office workers stopped on the street for a survey, agreed to give up their computer passwords in exchange for a chocolate bar.
Come on, 70. No.
Tough or bluff?
Well, because they could figure that they could go home and change it. But how much is a chocolate bar worth to someone? 71 is way too high. I'm going to say bluff 40%.
Chocolate is really, really good.
Really?
I might give a password for chocolate if I could. But I'm still gonna say bluff. 71%. That's kind of dumb. But you know, on Jay Leno, I don't know if you stay up late.
Yeah.
He goes out in the street and he asks people stuff. They don't know anything. Yeah. So I'm gonna change my vote to tough.
But they know they want to be on TV, though.
Yes.
I'll say tough. Chocolate is a powerful motivator.
It's tough.
That's crazy, man.
Yep.
I know you can run home and change it.
Well, would you give your passwords out if someone offered you a candy bar?
I don't really like chocolate.
Oh.
But if somebody offered me like a cookie, I'd probably do it for a cookie.
You would?
I like cookies.
Would you actually give them your real password?
I mean, how would anybody know where I work?
That's the other thing. It's
Yeah.
actually, that's funny. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, here's my password.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if there was any chance it could be hacked, then no, of course not.
How do they know they gave him the real password? That's just not even. All right, fine.
It's on the internet. It's true.
Well, Les Miserables,
Oh God.
Yeah.
the novel, not the musical, was very influential in triggering the French Revolution. Tough or bluff?
No, it was about the French Revolution. So no, tough. Bluff.
Yeah, bluff. It's about the revolution.
Bluff.
Bluff. It's a bluff.
Oh,
But here's the even bluffier bluff. Les Miserables wasn't actually about the French Revolution. It was about a conflict that happened a few years after the French Revolution. Because like most things, the French Revolution wasn't like an open and shut case. Like there was still a ton of strife and more discomfort and stuff. So like years after the revolution, another big kind of uprising happened in this area. And that's what the novel's about. But the novel was definitely way after the revolution. As a kid, I always did kind of have this impression that like someone wrote Les Miserables and people revolted in France. That's what I always thought.
Oh, so this is just this would have tricked you when you were younger.
Yes, I'm projecting.
I have a tougher bluff. The movie Lincoln, one of the representatives from one of the states called in and said, actually, an error in the movie. This state, which will remain anonymous for the moment, actually voted for abolition. And in the movie, they said it voted against.
Really?
Tough or bluff?
Sounds possible tough.
Tough. That would be nice.
It's too toughy. I'm going to go bluff.
I fooled one person at least. It's Connecticut. They said
Is it?
Connecticut voted no, and Connecticut
So they really
voted
did?
yes. They
So
made,
they really made a mistake.
in the movie. And now, of course, what are they going to do about that? Are they going to redo the movie?
No, they could just Steven Spielberg will just go when they raise their hand and they say no, he's just going yay.
You know, they'll do the George Lucas.
Yeah.
They'll have Jabba, digitized Jabba going, yes, we vote yes.
All right, well that does it for another episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining us, and please take care of yourself. Thanks for joining us, Anne.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet
It
you.
was very fascinating.
This was great.
Yes.
I'm sorry for their lewd behavior.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely fine with me.
Okay.
Did you warn her?
It was way fun.
I'm a
right.
little bit of everything. Are you surprised about that? Knowing me for as much as you know me?
Yeah, I am surprised. I would have thought you would have been much more on the judging side, but you're on the perceiving side. Because you're much more of a planned, organized person in my mind.
I thought I would be the judging one really strongly because there were a lot of questions that were like, you like things organized. you like things to, go as planned, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah. I answered all those like, hell yeah.
But you must have also answered a lot of hell yeah to the perceiving sides of things.
No.
Being spontaneous.
No,
and
I
flexible.
feel like I would have been more about the judging.
I thought you would have been so much more judgmental.
Oh, I am.